Hello, my name is the Sébile pivot frog. I am from France, and I catch all the fish. Well, I'm the Strike King Sexy Frog KVD. It says KVD, you know it's good, right? You better watch it or I'll smack you with my baguette. You better watch it, I'm gonna take that baguette, I'm gonna shove it right up your ass, frog. I will catch all the fish. You stupid redneck. Listen here, Froggy Frog. See what I did there? I think I love you. Well, you better back up. You're making me uncomfortable. Oh, this is ridiculous. First and foremost, I want to hit the most important point, and that is that it's pronounced Sébile, you uncultured swine. Now, to tell you the truth, I had never heard about Sébile until I got one of these baits in either a mystery tackle box or a lucky tackle box several years ago. And I held on to it. And remember, in one of the previous videos, we talked about how it's important to make sure that you're not collecting baits. You want to get rid of the stuff that you're not using so that you're an effective fisherman, not a collector. That's one of the big key points when it comes to being a minimalist fisherman. There's a lot more to it than just saying, I'm gonna tie one thing on in the spring and leave it on all year. That's not what we're going for. It's deeper than that. But when it came to this bait, I was glad that I held on to it because I started to take frog fishing a lot more seriously this year. I actually caught my first frogfish on, this is a Strike King KVD Sexy Frog, which is a terrible name for bait, but it's a good bait. This year I'm gonna switch to the Sébile. In this video, we're gonna cover some of the key differences between the two baits, which are both good, and why I'm making the switch. So the first thing that you're gonna notice about the Sébile is that it has one hook, and it uses what's called their gravity hook system. And this moves up and down and left and right a little bit. This is different from the traditional two-prong frog hook that most of us have seen. Not only does it only have one hook point, it also has this exposed weight down here on the bottom. And this acts as kind of a keel, so it's a lot easier to walk this bait than it is a traditional frog if you're in, say, more open water and you want that side-to-side action. The body material is a little bit thicker and it's a little bit more durable, but it's still collapsible. It's very easy to push down. And you can see when I push that down, there's a sizable amount of space there to get a good hook set. The body's 2.5 inches, like your standard size frogs. Legs, high quality, plenty of length on the legs. I always recommend you trim their biscuits. Trim them biscuits. There's multiple color options. It's extremely buoyant, even with the added weight. And right now it's retailing for $8. So this year there were a couple of things that happened that made me look to switch. And we're gonna cover those after I go over some of the features on the Strike King now. The Strike King KVD Sexy Frog, which is a terrible name for bait. It's a good frog. Very similar deal in some ways. It's 2.5 inches. The legs are too long when you take it out of the package, so you're gonna wanna trim his biscuits. Trim them biscuits. The hooks though are traditional. It's your standard two-prong frog hook, and it comes right up next to the body. So this is a little bit more weedless than the Sébile. It's got a little bit of a weight on the back to cause it to sit slightly nose up when it's at rest. The body is a lot softer because that needs to collapse on the hook set. It comes right up next to those hooks. So it's a softer plastic. You can feel the difference when it's in your hand. And it also comes with this nifty little butthole. I don't know if you can hear that on the back, so you can squirt out the water that it takes on. There's multiple color options, very buoyant, very weedless, and one other cool thing is that it currently has a rattle. Unfortunately, at this time, that's been discontinued. And you can pick these up for about $8 as well. Now, real quick, when it comes to the cost of baits, $8 is extremely reasonable for a bait like this that you're gonna get a lot of use out of. Seriously, if you don't have $8 and spending cash, go mow your neighbor's lawn, go pick up some cans, do something to get some of that spending money. I believe in you. You can do it. You can come up with $8 to get a good frog. We've all been on the water, having a bad day, not catching anything, or just catching dinks, and said to ourselves, I would pay $100 for a good fish. Please, Lord, grant me, bestow upon me a fish of quality size with great spirit and good fight. The fish that hit topwater are the kinds of fish that you want to catch. A lot of times they're a little bit larger, they're a little bit more aggressive. You don't get as many strikes as you would on some of the other baits that we're going to talk about. But if you spend $8 on this and you only catch one fish, and it's the only fish you catch all day, chances are that's gonna be $8 well spent. But you're gonna get more use out of these than that. So decide which one you want and pick it up. Now, I'm not gonna say go spend carelessly and buy a bunch of each. Don't do that. Don't buy 27 different colors. Figure out which one is gonna work best for your situation and try it out. One of the nice things that happens as you start to get more critical of the gear that you use or that you keep is that you actually spend less money because you're not trying to get every bait in every color. You're trying to get specific baits that you know will work, or that you've proven to yourself that will work, or that you have confidence in. Over time, you spend less money on more efficient gear. But if you find a company that you like, support them. Get good stuff. It's just worth it. When it comes to rods, reels, you don't have to go crazy. You don't need a $400 or $500 reel, but spending a couple $100 on a nice bait caster, for example. Typically when you're throwing a frog, you're gonna be using a heavier rod, bait casting setup. If you have something of higher quality, it's just gonna mean less trouble for you, provided you know how to use it. And that's a subject for another time. But again, both of these baits are worth the cost of admission. They're good quality baits. And this one was the one that I caught my first legitimate frog fish on. We just talked about that in the pond fishing video, and getting back into pond fishing. This was the frog that helped me do that. But I also talked about in that video the fact that I missed 2 fish that same day on this frog. And there were a couple of reasons why. One, because it's got 2 prongs, when the first big fish came up and attacked this, it took a mouthful of muck with it. And when I set the hook, I didn't set it as hard as I should have. But this also came out with a lot of sludge and snot attached to it. The other fish that came up and missed it got underneath it and just kind of, do better than that, just kind of hit it up in the air. And so the first thing that I thought about was like, I got this Sebile frog in my box at home, and it's got this weight on the bottom. I want to add a little bit more weight to this frog. Hopefully it's not too much. So that was the first thing. The second thing that I liked was that it's only got the 1 hook. So I felt like, remember I said that first frog I missed because I pulled out so much sludge? I felt like setting the hook with a single point was gonna allow me to cut through that sludge better and get a better hook set than using something with 2 hooks. So those were the 2 main drivers for the reason that I made the switch. Just from a normal standpoint, if you think about it, if you set the hook, if both of these are tied to line, the force you exert to set the hook, let's say this is sitting flush inside a fish's mouth and it's making contact in 2 places, versus this, which is making contact in 1 place. I'm sure there's some scientific explanation for this, but in my simple brain, you're just gonna be able to put more force in a single area than you can in multiple areas. So the concept seems solid, but I was concerned for 2 reasons. One, I was worried that as this was coming over the top of the water, it was gonna actually pick up more sludge. I was worried that because of this weight and because of this gap here on this pivot system, it was actually gonna pick up more gunk on the top of the water as I was pulling it back towards me, and I was gonna be constantly picking crap off of my bait. I didn't have that problem like I thought I was going to. It's actually quite weedless. Now again, the Strike King is more weedless. It's more weedless, but I didn't have enough of an issue that it made me want to switch back. So I didn't really have a problem with this like I thought I was going to, which was good. Concern number 1, we can check that off, we're good to go. Secondly though, and this is a big one, and I didn't realize it until I was cutting this off. Like I said earlier, this has a rattle in it. And it's kind of subtle. It's not a huge deal. This one does not. But again, I really want the weight and I really want the single hook when I go back to the pond or wherever I'm fishing topwater this year. I'm going to make the switch and start with this consistently. Unless something happens where I notice that there's a definite drop in the amount of action that I'm getting on this bait. At that point, what I'll do is I'll try to find a rattle and put it in the bait. I don't know if that's gonna be possible because it's pretty well sealed off. There's a little tiny hole in the back of this, not like the Strike King butthole. If the rattle seems to be something that really makes a difference, then I might switch back, or I'm gonna try to find a way to incorporate it in this bait. But the only way to do that is to go out and test. So that'll be what we do early this year. Now here's the big question that we all need to ponder when it comes to frog fishing. If you consider a fish looking up underneath a giant pad, what do they sense underwater? What is it that makes them attack that bait? Is it a reaction? Is it hunger? Is it an easy meal? They may or may not be able to see your frog, maybe when it gets to an opening. So when you're considering colors, when you're thinking about loading up on, I need 10 different types of frog colors, I would argue that you don't. I think the most important thing to consider is the belly. As this is coming over the top of the water, the belly is the only thing that's gonna be able to be seen. These little arms on the side, they're nice, they're cool, but do those catch fish or do they catch fishermen? Even the eyes on the top of the frog, you have to wonder if the fish can actually see that or if they're just reacting to something making a ruckus on top of the water. So if you are going to pick up a new frog, I would say pay the most attention to the belly. What color is the belly? Is it black or is it white?
And if you have two frogs, both with white bellies, and one's pink on top and one's black on top, I really don't think that that's going to be as dramatic a difference as if you have a frog with a white belly and a frog with a black belly. Those are two very distinctly different things when you're looking up at them, but this with some different colors on the top, it's going to be a lot more subtle. One other thing that you're going to want to consider when you're frog fishing is whether or not you need to trim his biscuits. Trim them biscuits. Now, a lot of times these guys come out of the package with very long skirted legs, and that's fine. Some guys like that. For me personally, I like to cut them down to about half that. Some guys will say, take the skirted leg and touch the nose of the bait, and then they'll snip off the extra. And one other thing that I've seen guys do is they'll take one of the legs and they'll cut it down significantly. They claim that that helps the bait act a little more erratic as it comes through the water. But for me, I like them a little bit shorter because I want to do what I can to tighten that package up a little bit. I want the bass to, if it's going to attack something, I want it to be closer to the hooks. I want him to have more of a likelihood of getting the entire bait in his mouth, not just the legs. I had a lot of strikes miss this year, and that's typical with frog fishing, but we want to do whatever we can to minimize those misses. And anything that we can do to increase our own odds are things that we should consider. So don't be afraid to experiment, but whatever you do, whatever bait you decide to go with, give it ample time to test it on the water. If it's early, if it's late, if it's overcast, those are all kind of stereotypical frog times. So if you find yourself in a situation like that, give it a try, see what happens. You can't go wrong with either one of these two baits. I could comfortably tie on either one and fish with it and not give it a second thought. So there's really no wrong way to go here, but there are some differences. So that's cool though, you have the option based on your preferences to make a choice. So I'll link to a blog, there's a little bit more information on this if you guys are interested in that. If this helped you in any way, make sure to hit me up on social media. I'd love to hear from you. Let's get better. See ya.